Hello. Sometimes there are places around our homes that we need to keep clear of wild plants. For example here, these paving stones at the entrance of our house. Now you can clear these plants by hand, and if you do so, I would recommend a very simple tool, an old screwdriver, to get under the plants and remove them. That will make life a lot easier if you use this very simple little tool. However, I find this extremely laborious, back-breaking, finger-breaking, and extremely boring. I have a very economic solution for you instead. My solution is this. Vinegar. In my case, white vinegar. Now normally I don't use any kind of products in the garden at all, and this is the one exception. Now we're going to look at how to use it, the pros and cons, and the alternatives. But before we start, let's just look at where the name vinegar comes from. It actually comes from two French words, vin and aigre. Vin means wine and aigre means sour, tart or acid. If you put these two words together, you get vin aigre. In French they say vinaigre, which gives us our English word vinegar. You can produce it quite easily at home if you take a bottle of wine, take the cork out of it and leave it on the sideboard for a couple of weeks. You will have vinegar. Okay, so let's see how we use it. We fill our sprayer with the vinegar. Now you can dilute it or mix it with things like soaps and so on, but I don't bother. I simply use pure white vinegar. It must be applied during dry weather because any moisture will dilute the action of the vinegar. So obviously not after or before rain. And you can usually apply 2 or 3 applications. That's really all that is necessary. Usually one application will suffice. And you can apply it in full sun. That isn't a problem, even if it's 30 degrees Celsius. It's really not a problem. You can apply it in any kind of warm weather. This is why I recommend vinegar. It's economic, doesn't cost much to buy, and even the equipment you need to apply it is economic too. You need a simple sprayer like this, as I used myself, or if you have larger spaces to cover, you could use something like this, a hand pump, to cover bigger areas. As you've seen, it's very quick and easy to apply, and also it doesn't pollute. Some people say it makes the soil a little more acid. I tend to disagree. I think the acid in the vinegar will react very rapidly with things in the soil and be neutralized. And another thing, it's actually quite kind to wildlife. If you accidentally spray down these little crevices where you find your plants, a little beetle or maybe a little lizard, it won't appreciate being sprayed with white vinegar, but it will live to tell the tale afterwards. Now, there is one drawback with white vinegar, in my opinion, and it's this. You can't use it on certain types of stone. So if you have flagstones made out of limestone, for example, it will react with the vinegar, because vinegar is in fact an acid. So I'll just show you what happens when you spray vinegar on calcium carbonate, which is the main constituent of limestone, for example. Here I've got a little bit of chalk, which is made of the same stuff as limestone. It's calcium carbonate. We're going to see what happens when I put vinegar on it. So it's in the container. I spray some vinegar on it. And as you can probably see, it's all fizzing away like crazy. It's actually reacting with the vinegar. That's why we don't use vinegar on calcium carbonate limestone, for example. So now we're literally about 24 hours after this single rapid application of white vinegar on these paving stones in front of the house. So we're going to take a closer look at how the plants are looking 24 hours later. So here we have untreated plants next to the paved area. Now let's look at the paved area to see how the plants are faring there after their treatment with white vinegar. So here we go. There's one little plant valiantly still trying to flower, but that will probably keel over fairly quickly. And there we are, its neighbour, which was a very healthy dandelion before the treatment. So let's look at alternatives to vinegar. Now the first one that comes to mind is bicarbonate of soda. This has all the advantages of vinegar, and also you can use it on stone which is made up of calcium carbonate, like limestone. The only little disadvantage I see is it takes a little bit more preparation. You usually have it in powder form and you have to mix it with water before putting it in your sprayer, but that's it. So I would certainly say it's an extremely good alternative. The next alternative on my list is bleach. Now bleach, like bicarbonate of soda, is an alkali, but it's extremely powerful. And also I don't really like the smell of it personally, although dogs and cats find it irresistible. So if you start spraying bleach all over your flagstones, you may well find you'll get lots of visits from the local dogs and cats. So bear that in mind. Hot water is an alternative. You can boil the kettle and pour boiling water over the areas that you want to clear of plants. There are a couple of disadvantages here. One, you're going to have to do an awful lot of trips to and from the kitchen to have enough water to cover any kind of surface area. And the other thing is, boiling water will kill small insects and animals that are hiding in the crevices between your flagstones. So there is a certain amount of collateral damage there. Salt is an alternative. I personally don't like it. I don't like putting salt on the soil. You will have a residue that sits there for a while, which will build up over years. And if for any reason you decide to remove your paved area and try to plant plants in that area later, if there's lots of salt in the soil, it will be extremely difficult to get anything to grow. Another alternative is using a pressure hose, which will physically eject the plants from the crevices that they're growing in. Now for me this has certain disadvantages. One, it will remove the plants, but what it's doing is also watering those areas, and any little dormant seeds that have been sitting in that little crevice will replace the little plant that you've removed with your pressure hose. So what you'll do is you'll clear the area perfectly with your pressure hose, but then 2 weeks later you'll have a whole load of new plants all growing where the old plants were. So maybe not a good choice. Another alternative is burners. This is a piece of kit, usually gas fired, that will produce a flame to kill the plants on your paving stones. Now, the problem for me is that this will also kill any of the insects or small animals hiding in the crevices between your flagstones. And of course, I'm sure in professional hands there's no real problem, but of course if you have naked flames around your house, you could have a rather nasty disaster on your hands if your house catches fire. Another alternative which is being developed at the moment is using steam. Steam will again kill any plants, but again it may well kill the wildlife too. And last but not least, chemical products that you can buy at your garden shop. Now, some will be organic. Again, it's for you to decide whether you want to use those or not. And the others will actually contain some fairly noxious chemicals to kill the plants. I personally avoid these kinds of products because they are poisoning not only the plants but also the ground that they're growing in. And of course, if you're using it yourself and you're getting it on your skin, there may be certain health concerns there too. We've done a tour of white vinegar and a number of alternatives. Now, one thing I just want to underline is safety. If you ever use any kind of kit or products, of course, read the safety instructions and arm yourself with any safety equipment necessary, such as goggles, shoes, gloves, etc. Other than that, I think you've seen that my favourite still remains white vinegar for clearing spaces of unwanted plants. And maybe I've given you a few ideas for your little home sweet home. Bye for now.